So now we have our finished website, and it's really important that we go through a formal process of testing it. So we've already tested it a little bit as we've been going, just visually, functionally testing that it's looking the way that it should, testing that these image hover effects are working and so on. We haven't put in active links on all of these buttons, but we can test that they are actually links by hovering our mouse over and seeing the icon change. And if you were building a real website, you'd actually want to check that these links were working and going to the right place. The other thing we can do to test our code is we can use some validators. So they're just a way of automatically checking if we've got any syntax errors or anything like that. So you can find them quite easily if you just search for HTML validator. And the first one that comes up here is a really good one to use. And it's got a few different options. You can either validate by putting in a URL, so a website that's online already. You can upload a file, or you can go direct input. And that's what I'm going to use. It'll allow us just to copy and paste all of the code that we have here into this section here and click check. Now you'll see it'll come up with a number of warnings, in particular to do with the image tags that we've used. The first one, it's suggesting that we put in this language English tag for our HTML, and you could put that up in your head section if you wanted to, but then all of the rest of them are errors, and it's saying that an image element must have an alt attribute, and that's something that we didn't put in for our image tags. And remember, an alt attribute will allow you to specify the text that appears on the web page if for some reason the image can't load, or if the user is using a screen reader. So it also highlights them down here in your HTML to show you where those issues are. And if we go in and just fix one, so I'll find one of the images in here, and I'll zoom in on that a little bit so we can see it better. So we have just one of our image tags, this section here, and at the end of that, before the closing bracket, I'm going to put in an alt attribute, and it's just some meaningful text that's going to display if that image can't show up. So I'll just call it transformer computer. Okay, now if I go back and check that again, there will be one less of these error tags. If, however, you had an error like a missing closing bracket like that, when you click check, you'll see an error like this one here. It's saying it saw an opening bracket when it expected an attribute name, and it gives you a probable cause, which is the missing closing bracket, which is of course the thing I just deleted. So it gives you some pretty good error messages about what you can do to fix, and it also gives you your line reference and column reference. So we can go up and we can see that we're in line 6, and that's where our issue is up here. Okay, so that's how you can check your HTML. It works very much the same for CSS. Again, we'll use the direct input method. So I'll go back to my CSS and copy all of that in. And you'll see we have just one error here. It says on line 23, for the nav A property, there's a value error and font size pass error. So if you get this pass error, that means that it's a syntax problem, so you would have missed something in your code. So if I look back to line 23, and you can see I was looking at this earlier, line 23, I've missed the colon for my font size. Now if we look at the live preview with that missing, with that colon missing, and this was on the navigation elements at the top, that section up there, it looks fine, it looks like there's nothing wrong. So you might not easily pick up that error, but actually if I put that colon back in, you can see that the font size has changed, so it's now 70% of what it was. So this is a good example of where you might have an error in your code but not actually realize it. Another thing that you might have noticed is when I had that error there, I have this little red icon on the left. That's a brackets add-on that I've talked about briefly in class, and just a reminder that you can do that by going up to this folder icon here, Extension Manager, and if you search for interactive linter, you can just install that add-on. It takes a few seconds to load up, and then I've got it installed already, so I just have to disable or remove. You'd see an install button there, and it just takes a few seconds to install. And then as you go, it will give you these indications both in your HTML and your CSS if you have any problems. So it's really important to document your testing and make sure that your code is valid and there's no small errors that you might have missed. Go through that process with your code, check it, correct any errors, and that will be it for this video.